When booting up Death End Request's Switch version for the first time and seeing its opening moments, I was instantly reminded of its chilling story. I remember the times I played with the lights off, absorbing the world that managed to be even darker than the first one, and going through the visual novel cross JRPG, enjoying the slowly unraveling story. And I especially love that thanks to its timeline feature, I still have extra bits of the story to let me find out even more how it connects with the first one. The Switch version seemed like a good way for me to do this at my own pace, and in some ways it is thanks to it including all of its previous DLC that can make a playthrough faster. And it also fixes the censorship issue that made many not want to try it on PS4, meaning that in theory the Switch version is the most complete edition you can get without spending extra. But while these things are very good, the performance on Switch unfortunately wasn't what I'd hoped, and while battles ran okay, I never thought about performance when playing on PS4, making me think it's good to keep in mind all of its systems and their pros and cons if you plan on picking this up. Its visual novel moments in combat did remind me of why I love this game though, so in this video I want to go over in detail why the Switch version might not necessarily be my favorite version of it, but why I think it's a game worth playing, whether it be on Switch or whichever system you prefer. Let's get this out of the way early in the video. The Switch version of Death End Request 2 really struggles from frame rate problems when it comes to exploration. Naturally, it has no problem when it comes to visual novel moments and its menus, as they don't require much processing, so the story is still able to be enjoyed. But when it comes to running on the field, it's a little bit of a different situation. The original Death End Request 2 ran at 30 frames per second, presumably with no problems, as I never really thought about it when I played on PS4. But immediately when running in the Switch port, the lack of smoothness is incredibly obvious, even just from the camera panning around the field at the beginning of the first area. And while I don't have any software or anything to properly check this frame rate, for just counting the individual frames in Premiere, I would say it runs somewhere between 30 frames per second and 15, with things such as turning the camera when you run around a corner being its worst looking points. And additionally, when I picked up my Switch, I found it running quite hot, making me wonder if this is a processing issue or if it's something that's happened with other Switch games I played and I only happened to notice in this one. Battles aren't so bad though, as there's no sprinting, and the important bits such as the glitch transformation sequences and special attacks ran just fine at the very least, so combat is still able to be enjoyed, and it still has that very interesting system of throwing these enemies into the girls and watching them be thrown around the field that's a lot of fun. It's just a little bit of a shame that aside from the general lowering of visual quality that usually comes with Switch ports, exploring isn't the nicest it could be, to the point where my plan of replaying bits of it to see its post-game is something I think I'd rather do on the PS4 version, as I didn't really find the exploration I needed to do to progress the main story feeling very pleasant. In saying that, I did enjoy the idea of having the DLC, such as the extra money and ultimate weapons in my second playthrough that I could only experience in this version without paying extra for them, and ironically, it may see me eventually pay for the PS4 DLC just to have a more complete version like this one, but running as I would like it to. I guess for those who took issue with the characters from the first game's costumes being censored, even in spite of the performance issues, it might be nice for some to have this game available on another console, especially if you don't have a PC to play it on. Personally, I'd say the PS4 and likely the PC version will probably give a better experience if you want something smooth, but if your only worries are to do with the censorship of certain outfits, then you'll want to look at this version or the PC one. If I had to choose between the two versions I have access to, which are the PS4 and Switch versions, the smooth and problem-free frame rate I have playing on PS4 would probably have me sticking with it, but I'm of course not at all against this game being on more systems for those who can handle issues like that a bit better, as this game does have a good story to tell that I'd love to see more people playing. Before getting to the gameplay parts of Death End Request 2 on Switch, I was reminded of how good its visual novel cross-RPG story is thanks to its many story events, and even after I got into the gameplay, I was reminded of how fun its combat is, and also how good it is at keeping the horror atmosphere alive even when performance isn't at its best. In fact, in a weird way, as long as the Switch version continues to have no crashes, I can see the unsteady frame rate almost adding extra to the unsettling moments when you're running from the dark shadows that randomly appear during during exploration that could add a little bit of charm to this version, and this, along with the random unsettling ringing from the payphone that sits on the map and the weird sounds in between load screens, has the creepy atmosphere still coming through that was kind of exciting to relive again, and managed to break past the textures in this version that still kept Death End Request 2 feeling like it's supposed to. The dark atmosphere is what we feel as Mai goes through so much, from the ordeal with her father at the beginning to her desperation to find her sister in a strange school, and re-seeing the mystery of this school unfold again as things began to happen in the night made this school for girls feel all the more creepy. So if this appeals to you, there's no doubt this is a story worth seeing, especially with its cast of girls that I very much remember becoming quite fond of as the story went on and made its twist all the more impactful. And in battle, while I completely forgot how weaknesses work, that didn't really matter with how strong my special weapon was. I was also reminded of the fun of unlocking glitch mode after picking up bugs on the field, along with how fun aiming to fire enemies at each other to make them fly everywhere was, and seeing the glitch animations with the girls to top it off made this system so unique. It really is one of Compile Heart's best systems that I play through that I think is completely worth a try if you think it looks interesting, as there just aren't many systems that make you feel like you're pinballing enemies all around it while having these dark transformation sequences in this dark and interesting world. I have a full review of Death End Request 2 for those who want to know even more about the game, but in short, I love that this peek even into what was frankly a worse version of a great game reminded me of all the great things about it, and if I had more time in these busy months of releases, I'd like to keep diving into it or other horror-based Compile Heart releases, as I think they create that atmosphere well. If you have a Switch and were excited for this version, while this particular one isn't the first I'd recommend, it's likely that there are also going to be some people who can look past the performance issues or even find how the frame rate issues could add to the glitchy atmosphere charming. In any case, I really do hope it gets more people to try this great story, regardless of where or which console people choose to play on, as my story of trying to find her sister in the School of Mysteries is one I think is worth seeing, and one I hope to see more of one day, whether by exploring this entry more or in another entry in the series in future. Thank you for watching this video. Let me know in the comments below if you've tried Death End Request 2 on any of its consoles, and if you're planning to pick up this Switch version. You can like and share this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to my channel for more JRPG content like this, and ring that bell to get notifications on whenever I post so you don't miss a thing. You can check out more videos here, and you can find me on social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, all at JRPG Jungle. Links to those will be in the description below. Thank you to Idea Factory for the code, and until next time, thank you, bye!